You have probably heard the expression that communication is a soft skill. Today, I would like to challenge that and suggest to you that actually communication is a life-changing and a life-saving skill. Before I became a hostage and crisis negotiator, I thought I was a pretty good communicator. I based this on both life at work and life outside of work, those everyday conversations that you have. I'd been a police officer for about 20 years before I became a negotiator. I'd seen and I'd done a lot of things. I was an advanced driver. I'd passed many challenging firearms courses. And in my mind, I was a little bit like, well, how difficult is this 2-week negotiation course really going to be? On that very first day that I arrived, I was feeling quite confident, maybe a little bit arrogant, definitely with a preconceived idea of what those 2 weeks were going to be. But that 2 weeks changed my life forever. You see, they took everything I believed to be true about communication, they turned it on its head and showed me a different way. A way of building relationships with people very quickly, in very challenging circumstances, in life and death situations. Now, I had the privilege of being a negotiator for almost a decade, and I spoke to hundreds of people in crisis throughout my policing career. And in each one of those conversations, there was a lesson to be learnt. And today I'm going to share with you 3 of those lessons, because they don't just work in the world of hostage and crisis negotiation, they work in everyday relationships. Lesson number 1, perspective. Let me share with you my first ever negotiation. Picture the scene. It's really cold. It's incredibly wet. It's January. It's about 10:30 at night, and I'm thinking about the next day. I've packed my bag. I'm thinking, shall I go to bed now? What shall I do? When suddenly I can hear my work phone ringing. Now, this is unusual because I'm not on call. So I look around, I find my phone, I pick it up, and there in the middle of the screen is the name Stuart. And so now I am excited, because Stuart taught me how to be a hostage and crisis negotiator. And this means this is going to be my first live negotiation. But I'm a professional, right? I'm calm under pressure. I know how to answer the phone when I am excited. Now, I don't know about you, but when I get excited, I have a physical reaction. My palms become really sweaty. My heart does that cartoon thing where it pumps out of my chest, and those butterflies make me incredibly nervous. But I'm going to answer it in that calm, professional manner. Hi, Stuart! Hi, Stuart! Hi, Stuart! Hi! Hi, Stuart! Hi, Nick, says Stuart. He says, I'm really sorry to trouble you because I know you're not on duty and you're not on call. But there is an incident about 10 minutes down the road from where you live. Can you go? I said, yeah, of course I can. Tell me what's happening. And this is what he says. A young man has recently been released from prison for grievous bodily harm. He's gone round to his ex-partner's address. They have a young child together, a child he has never seen. There's been an emotional conversation, an altercation. She alleges that he has assaulted her, but he's taken the child without her permission. There's been a car chase around London, and now he's surrounded by police officers. He's locked all of the doors. He's refusing to talk to anybody, and he's holding the child like a shield. Can you go and negotiate the safe release of the child and the safe release of him? Of course I can, Stuart. I've had a 2-week course. And as I'm waiting for a car to take me to the scene, these are the things that are running through my head. Heroin negotiator arrives on scene. Moi, obviously. Has a great conversation with the young man in the car. He opens the door, he shakes her by the hand, hands her the child, and is gently led away in handcuffs. Well, of course, none of that happened. In the 8 hours that we were together, he said 2 things to me. The first one was this: you do not understand. You do not understand. The second one was, go away, or words to that effect. Now, the incident ended and the child was safe, but the young man was tasered. There was a big fight and he was arrested. And I walked away from that negotiation feeling that I had failed him, feeling that I had failed the world of negotiation, thinking, maybe this isn't the thing that I should be doing. Maybe I will never be able to implement these great skills that I have been given. And it was only after many months, if not years, of watching other great negotiators, of learning more about human behaviour and psychology, that I realised that whole conversation had been about me. He didn't see me as a heroine negotiator come to save the world. He probably looked at me and saw a white, middle-aged, middle-class woman and thought, what have we got in common and how are you going to help me? Perhaps he even saw me as the person that was going to take away the child he had only just met, or send him to a place he didn't want to go. And when I realised this, when I realised that when you see the world from the other person's perspective, well, that is when the magic happens. Because what happens is you allow that other person to feel valued and validated. And when people feel valued and validated, they're more likely to listen to your opinion and see the world from your perspective. Lesson number 2, we all have a story. Ashley was having the worst day of his life. His brother Sam had just been kidnapped. Now, Sam was working for a local gang, selling drugs on the estate. But today, he had decided he would sell the drugs and keep the money. Now, as you can imagine, the gang leader didn't think this was such a great idea. And in retaliation, he had decided to kidnap Sam to teach him a lesson and was now demanding money from his brother Ashley for his safe release. When I met Ashley, he was angry. In fact, he was furious. He didn't like me because of everything that I represented and the organisation that I work for, and he was being driven by fear. I think it's safe to say that in those first 2 hours, Ashley and I did not get on. If I'm completely honest with you, it took every ounce of my training and my resilience and my patience not to react emotionally. And it was the words of one of the best negotiators from the FBI that I've ever had the privilege of meeting that stayed with me at that time. Because he had taught me that you cannot control or change the way that people act towards you. The only thing that you have control over is how you choose to respond. And with those words ringing in my ear, I went back to my training. I listened to Ashley. I used reflective and emotional language with him. And gradually over time, he started to open up. He told me about his job as a chef, of which he was incredibly proud. He told me of the responsibilities of being the oldest sibling. He told me how he had tried to talk to Sam and warned him of the dangers of what he was doing. He also told me about how he had been arrested and why he didn't trust police. He shared with me some of his story. Because we all have a story. Every one of us here right now in this room, we all have our very own story, which is unique to us. We all have our challenges, our struggles, our beliefs, our emotions. And depending on where we are in our story, will depend on how we react to other people. You know that person that bumped into you in the supermarket the other week and didn't say sorry? That car that cut you up with no acknowledgement whatsoever? That teenager that comes in, throws their bag on the floor, stomps up the stairs, refuses to talk to you? Or perhaps even your colleague or a member of your team that you just cannot communicate with? Well, they all have a story. All of us here, we have our very own story. And when we realise this, well, it helps us to listen to understand. And when we listen to understand, it stops us from reacting emotionally based on what we believe to be true. Lesson number 3, listening. Kelly was 14. She'd been in and out of trouble with the police since about the age of 12. I was the night duty custody sergeant, and I was walking around just checking that everybody was okay before I sat down and began my night's work. As I got to the juvenile detention cells, I noticed that Kelly was still awake. I opened the door. I said, "You right, Kelly?" "Oh, I can't sleep, miss," she said. "Do you fancy a hot chocolate?" "Oh, yes, please, miss." I knew Kelly of old. You see, Kelly's mum was a heroin addict. She didn't have much time for Kelly, so Kelly ended up spending a lot of time on her own. Kelly's mum had boyfriends that came in and out of her life. Kelly liked some of them, not so keen on others. She had a grandma that lived nearby and she wanted to live with her grandma, but her grandma felt that she was too old and too tired to deal with a very enthusiastic teenager. And as we sat there in the custody area, Kelly told me about her life. She told me about her hopes, about her dreams, about school, about how she stole things just to fit in and look like the other girls. And then suddenly the radio crackled into life and we were told that there was a violent prisoner on their way to the custody area. Come on, Kelly, I said, let's get you back to your cell. All right, miss, she said. And as I was about to close the door, she looked me straight in the eye and said this: thanks for listening, miss. Thank you for listening. It's a simple phrase, a simple sentence, but it means so very much. Because when you are able to be in the space with somebody else, when you forget about your own biases, your own judgments, your own problem solving, your own opinions, and let's be honest, we all love to share our opinions. And sometimes we pretend to listen. Sometimes we're doing something else, maybe typing or watching our favourite programme, and somebody starts talking to us and we do this. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Uh-huh. But we haven't listened to them. And when you're able to do that, because listening is a skill, and it takes conscious effort, and it takes a little bit of extra time, but when you do it, well, that's where you make the difference in the world. You see, I believe that in every conversation, there is an opportunity for you to make a difference either in your life or the life of another person. And my question to you today is, what are you going to do with your superpower? I'm Nicky Perfect. Thank you for listening to me.